All right, we should now be live.
Great, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Sage Turner, Chair of the Asheville Regional Housing Consortium. I'd like to welcome you to this special meeting of Home Investment Partnership Program Funding, or Home Applicant Presentations. All committee members and applicants are participating virtually today. We're streaming live on our Virtual Engagement Hub, and that's accessible through the Virtual Engagement Hub link on the front page of the city's website. We also have an option for the public to listen live by phone. To do so, you call 855-925-2801. That's 855-925-2801, and enter the meeting code 8763. For those of you out there with us today, welcome. I will now go through an introduction, and if you could, please, as I call your name, say a quick hello. Okay, Robin Merrill, Vice Chair.
Good morning.
Good morning. Karen Kina. Karen's not with us today. Ben Woody.
Good morning.
Morning. Jennifer Miranda.
Good morning.
Morning. Preston Blakely. Saw him. Elizabeth Hanson.
Good morning.
Oh, Preston, you are with us. I'm sorry. I didn't see you come in. Okay, great. Elizabeth Hanson.
Good morning.
John Connett. Jonathan Jones.
Good morning.
Morning. Matthew Card.
Good morning.
Emily Brewer.
Good morning.
Forrest Gilliam. Forrest, okay. Ricky Hurley. No, Ricky. Kate Hayes.
Morning.
And Alice Berry.
Good morning.
Great. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to introduce our staff leadership as well. Community and Economic Development Director, Nikki Reed.
Good morning.
Morning. And Community Development Coordinator, Thana Alley.
Hi, good morning.
Great. Okay, everyone, it's a special meeting. We're going to be hearing presentations from 9 organizations who are applying for the home funding for 11 different projects. Each project presentation will be about 5 minutes long. Applicants, please keep a timer so we don't have you running over and we don't have to interrupt you. During today's presentations, presenters will not take questions from board members. There will also not be any public comment. We're just simply hearing the presentations. Staff will introduce each presenter, and presenters, please keep your microphone muted and your cameras off, please, until you hear your organization's name called. That will ensure that the existing applicant is on screen. Again, this is a meeting for applicant presentations only. We will have another meeting of this consortium next week, Wednesday, March 22nd at 10 a.m. for the home funding recommendations and allocations. Information about that meeting will be posted on the city's website 3 days prior to the meeting. And before we begin the presentations, Nikki Reed is going to give us a little bit of an overview. Nikki, are you ready?
Yes, thank you, Chair Turner. Hello, consortium members. It's great to see you. Happy Friday. And thank you so much to our applicants who have also joined us today to share more information about their proposals. As you all know, this process is extremely competitive with limited funding, and of course we all know that there is great need in our community for these types of projects. So again, thank you everyone for coming. This year we had a total of 15 home applications that we received. However, 4 of those applications were deemed ineligible, and so that's why we have the number here today to present. That total figure in terms of applications amount was over $8 million. So that's a large number of potential funding there. We are looking at our current allocation that we have with both this year's home allocation as well as some funding returned from last year, and our allocation is going to be just around 1.7 million. So that kind of demonstrates the level of availability in conjunction with the level of need. Again, I did want to remind the committee that we have had assistance with a group named TDA Consulting. That is a national firm that does community development consulting. They have actually been of great assistance this year with combing through these applications. They will be joining us on Wednesday to really walk us through recommendations after we hear from the applicants today. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Sage and we'll get started with the presentations. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Nikki. Right, I've got us queued up. The first one is Commonwealth Development for Fairhaven Meadows. Are you guys ready? There's so many of us on this meeting. Until you pop up, I can't see you. There you go. All right.
Yes. Can you hear me okay, everybody?
Yes, we can. Great. Thank
Okay.
you. Go ahead.
Excellent. So I'm Sean Brady, Vice President of Development at Commonwealth Development Corporation, and I'm presenting today about Fairhaven Meadows. We are a new construction 60-unit affordable housing development targeting families, 100% affordable. We'll be using income averaging so that we can have basically one of the widest ranges possible, 40 to 70% of the area median income. And we were selected for funding in 2022 by NCHFA. I think we were the first 9% award in Brevard in more than a decade. Actually, I think it's longer than that. We're pretty excited. We have a partnership that we've worked out with Sharing House, where we'll have on-site mobile food pantry, as well as a private consultation space for residents, which will enable them to kind of better deploy their existing ministry and help our residents out, as well as others in the community. We are moving forward. We're targeting a July to August closing date. We do have now firm debt and equity offers. And we do have multiple general contractors reviewing the construction cost, including, one local GC, First Victory, is very interested in the project. We are very fortunate to have received a previous award last year from the Housing Consortium, and appreciate that greatly. The challenge that we've had, though, is since that time, the credit pricing has dropped significantly, along with an interest rate rise across the country, and that's fueling part of the credit drop. And construction costs have continued to rise as well. But the good news is that costs do seem to be stabilizing, and interest rates, hopefully, knock on wood, are stabilizing as well. And so we are asking for some additional funding to close our funding gap, which at this point, thankfully, with things having stabilized, we feel is pretty well known at this point. We do know that last year there was additional funding allocated in Transylvania County. I think it was about the same amount as our request. I think it was like $300,000 for another development that unfortunately was not able to move forward. So we are respectfully requesting that money stay in the county. We believe that the $300,000 to $350,000 would help plug our funding gap and allow us to move forward to closing. So it's been an interesting time. A lot of challenges out there. Thankfully, Commonwealth is I think we're one of the top 10 developers of affordable housing in the country. We've been able to weather the storm more than some, and also been able to command better credit pricing and construction pricing than some. But unfortunately, there's still been some pretty big swings since our last request to the consortium. So thankfully, it's stabilized. Have a good project moving forward, and I think we have a good, unique opportunity to bring some much needed affordable housing to Brevard. So thank you for considering our additional funding request.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Sean. And just for clarity, was it 300, 400? What was the final number there? I didn't actually hear.
$350,000. $350,000 is our request. That's based on our underwriting, which seems to be holding.
Great. Thank you. Sorry, typing and reading. And okay, we appreciate that. Next, we're moving on to number 2, which is Community Housing Coalition, and that is housing replacement. Sean, if you could, yeah, there you go. Okay, and who do we have with this group today?
Good morning. I'm Chris Watson, Program Director at Community Housing Coalition.
Great.
Thank you, Sage. This application is for additional funding for the housing replacement program that we started, that was funded originally under partially funded under 2021-2022 consortium funding. You may have seen the recent article in the paper about this project. We are asking for some additional funding to help us make up the gap for construction funds. We originally wrote the budget back in 2019, 2020. And, as Sean just said, we know all the reasons that costs are up. And it's a new program for us. There has been little to no new housing created in Madison County since I think the consortium supported the Mars Hill Commons project back in 2013, 2014, I believe. And so I think Habitat's built 1 or 2 houses. And so what we're asking for is funding to allow us to complete the 4 units that we originally proposed. We were originally funded as Chodo, and we found out recently that this isn't a Chodo eligible activity. And so in talking to Jonathan and his staff, we're gonna have to reallocate this out of Chodo into normal home funding. And then we also determined, because this is really new to community housing, but it's also a really new program to the consortium, at least in all of our experiences, is that we could not put deed restrictions on to create permanent affordability with these homes. And so we are asking the consortium to not only give us some additional funding, but reallocate the entire pot we would do 4 total projects, but 2 of those homes would be funded by home funding and 2 would be funded through private funding that we've secured. And what that would allow us to do is create 4 new affordable housings in Madison County, but 2 of them would be permanently affordable, and that CHC would be able to purchase those back and keep them affordable on the market. But it also allows us to scale this project and build the expertise internal to Madison County so that we can look at other new affordable housing projects and meet that need here in Madison County that currently is not being met by any other affordable housing projects outside of the single family units being developed by Habitat, which is outside of, I believe, consortium funding. So a little bit of a change from what we originally asked for, but seeing if we can respectfully request $90,000 in additional funding to help us get through the 4 homes and really build that expertise and supply some much needed new units here in Madison County. So thank you all for consideration of that.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for being here today. We have you for number 3 as well. Will you be, so number 3 is also community housing and rural rehab. So if you want to jump into that, go ahead.
Right. So we're also, we run a rural rehab program, and we are asking again for the consortium. Traditionally, about every other year, we ask for funding to support this rural rehab program. In the past, we've only used home funds from the consortium for complete housing rehab, and we are now leveraging those with NCHFA essential single family housing projects. We're really fortunate to have both sources of funding because NCHFA's program is capped at $30,000, and with construction costs what they are, it's very challenging to meet the housing standard with that $30,000 cap. So having home funds where we can add an extra $10,000 or $15,000 on top of that and rehab a home that gives us, basically we consider an affordable living unit for the next 20 years is really important, as we really don't have any other source of funding to add on to that, to leverage with that ESFR funding. And we do state in our application, 4 to 6 homes, but really we're, in reality, it could be up to 8 or 10 homes with this home funding. On our ESFR 18 3-year cycle, which was our first cycle in that funding, we did 15 homes versus an original allocation of 5. So we are really able to turn these units around and do one of the most effective means of affordable housing in Madison County, which is preserve the housing we have, because it's so hard to develop new housing. So we're asking for $190,000 there. As you see, we still have some remaining from our 2021 funding, but that we already have those projects lined up, and that money is going to be spent well before we actually are able to execute this funding if it was allocated. So thank you. Please please consider both of our asks as best you can. I know you'll have some hard decisions. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you for your time today. That moves us on to presentation number 4, which is Helpmate and rental assistance for domestic violence. Who's with us from Helpmate?
Good morning. This is April Burgess Johnson with Helpmate. Councilwoman, would you remind me, do we have 3 or 5 minutes for this presentation?
You have 5.
All right, thank you so much. So we appreciate your consideration of Helpmate's request. We've requested $157,300 worth of home funding to provide tenant-based rental assistance. This rental assistance will span the 1-year period covered by the home TBRA regulations. Helpmate is an organization that provides safety, shelter, and support for survivors of intimate partner domestic violence. And so the people served under this program would be folks who are homeless because they are fleeing domestic violence, who are at 50% or less of the AMI for our area, and who are prioritized via our coordinated entry system. Helpmate participates alongside other homeless service and housing providers in the community to make sure that those rental assistance funds get to the folks who have the most substantial need for them. But when Helpmate works with folks, we try to provide kind of a beginning to end case management approach with people. And it's a little bit different than sort of standard housing case management that you'll get from other providers, because we're addressing additional issues that are contributing to the lack of safety for the families that we're serving. About 92% of the folks who are staying in Helpmate's emergency shelter, 91% of the folks who are staying in Helpmate's emergency shelter are at extreme risk of homicide due to domestic violence. And so our shelter literally shelters those folks who are most likely to die if we don't shelter them. And shelter is one of the primary referral sources into our housing case management programs. So we'll work with folks on emergency shelter. We provide access to a 24-hour hotline. We offer free individual counseling and group support for folks. We help people navigate the civil and criminal justice systems to make sure that any legal needs that have stemmed from the abuse they've suffered are addressed. We work hand in glove with Department of Social Services as appropriate to address the needs of child maltreatment that may arise out of domestic violence that those adult survivors are experiencing. And then when somebody comes into our housing program, we'll do an individualized goal plan with each of those folks on behalf of their family, right? So we're addressing goals that are meeting the needs of the child survivors and the adult survivors in that family. And we'll look at things like, what is your income level? Are there things that we can help you access that may boost your income earning potential so that needs for these kinds of supports like rental assistance goes down over time? We'll do a comprehensive screening to make sure that folks are eligible for the housing program into which they've applied. If somebody is prioritized via that coordinated assessment process, then we'll help folks with the housing search. We've developed relationships with landlords to try to bolster the number of folks who will accept rental assistance funding. We do that some in partnership with Thrive, who helps us locate some local landlord options. Once a match is made between a survivor that we're working with and a landlord, we'll do those housing quality inspections. We'll work with that survivor and the landlord. The lease is between the survivor and the landlord. Helpmate is the payee for a prescribed period of time, but we're intentional about making sure that that lease is between those two folks so that it can endure after our period of assistance ends, because we want this to be a long-term stable match. All of our services are required to be voluntary by federal law. And so we don't prescribe a minimum or maximum length of service. Rather, we stand at the ready to provide ongoing services for as long as that family needs us. And we can step, if there's a period of dormancy where things are going okay, and then there's another event or set of circumstances that requires us to be needed again, we can step back in and continue to offer that support seamlessly. We would serve 6 households representing 17 people under this partnership. I will note in the staff evaluations that came to us, there was a note that we had not yet spent down home funds. It's because we didn't go under contract for any home funds until just a couple of months ago. And so we are now in the process of enrolling people and understand that our old awards would need to be addressed before new awards were offered. But I will say this program meets a pretty clear and consistent regional need. Last year, Helpmate sheltered 272 survivors. Another 392 survivors came to us who were homeless because of abuse. They were fleeing their situation. We found them shelter elsewhere. But there's a strong documented need to address homelessness caused by domestic violence, both through our shelter program and through this housing program, which are intertwined with one another in a way that I think is meaningful to the folks that we serve. So I thank you in advance for your consideration. I'm happy to take any questions you have.
Thank you, April. We're not doing Q&A today, but appreciate that.
Thank you.
And thank you for your time today. We're moving on to applicant number 5, which is Henderson County Habitat for Humanity for down payment assistance. Is that Linda?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity today to present. Just to give a little bit of back history on Meadows housing development, there are 76 houses currently built with families living in them in Meadows. We anticipate closing quite a few more that's not part of this grant in early this coming year. That neighborhood has won awards for its innovative design with the garden and the community center. We serve families between 30 and 80% of the average median income. And what that comes down to in numbers of families that we see, about 50% of them are below 50% of the AMI. Our goal is to sell houses to families who at a rate that exceeds no more than 30% of their monthly income. Given that 50% of our families are below 50% of the AMI, that often means much larger down payment contributions. We rarely have families over 70% of AMI to apply for homes. What we've noticed, and if y'all will notice, the amount that we are requesting this year has gone up quite a bit from what we've requested in the past for down payment. What we were requesting is $40,000 down payment assistance on 8 homes to be built during this grant period by June 2026. The reason for that is combined with the fact that we are seeing our percentages of families that are in the lower part of the AMI, more of those applying. But in addition to that, our homes were appraising at $200,000 and now they're appraising at $280,000, meaning that we had to make up more of a down payment. Habitat makes up the difference between the other donors. And generally the average amount that Habitat puts in toward a house is about $50,000 of our cash to make up for down payment to families. We do have some families that we've put in as much as $90,000 for one house. So there's that's our concern in the following year, is trying to figure out what we're going to have to put down and trying to budget for that. Also, with the not really understanding, are we going to stay at that 50%? Or are we going to have more families that are in the lower end of that? The infrastructure for phases 3 and 5, which is our last 3 and 6, which is our last 2 phases, is well underway. We're actually having roads plowed in at this time. That's being done by Site Development Corporation. The cost of doing that infrastructure is $2.5 million. We've achieved that with a $2 million grant, a $2 million loan from Dogwood Health Trust at a lower interest rate. And then we're making up the other 0.4 million with other funds that we have. The infrastructure will be ready for us to begin building by the end of April. We had hoped it would be March, but we're running a little bit behind with infrastructure development with a few of the rainy days that we couldn't get to that. Our goal, because this also overlaps a little bit with SHOP money for infrastructure, we'll have 3 houses produced by the end of February of 2024, an additional 3 by the end of May. And then there's 2 other ones that we want to kind of cross over and try to have done by the end of June, which would be this particular grant period, meaning 8. The last 2 phases of Dodd Meadows have 35 homes in them. And so we are in the process of hiring right now to have additional staff. We don't want our repair program to decline with all this building going on. So we're hiring 1 additional person for supervisory roles in repair, and 2 more that will be general construction that will help us get these particular homes complete. We're excited about the opportunity. In following years, our plan is to try to start doing more multifamily homes, but these homes were already laid out. This neighborhood was already laid out, so it really was cost prohibitive to change all of that. But that's what you can expect from us in the future, to try to get as many homes as we can on 1 piece of land. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Linda. We appreciate you being here today. That puts us at number 6, which is Homeward Bound of Western North Carolina, homelessness diversion. Who's with us today? Oh, Marcus, great.
Hello, happy Friday and happy St. Patty's Day to everybody. Thank you guys for having me. I'm here to talk to you about home diversion. Diversion is a best practice that's used in homeless service provisions to assist individuals in resolving a housing crisis by utilizing natural supports and resources to ensure the homeless experience is short-lived. So when an individual presents to us and they experience homelessness, our first order of business is to assess exactly what is going on with the individual, what their barriers are, and if they have the ability to increase income or maintain stable income that would help us to put them in a position for housing stability. Homeward Bound utilizes home diversion funding to assist individuals by providing options for housing stability for folks recently introduced to homelessness but seeking recovery options. During the last funding cycle for Homeward Bound was awarded $20,000 to administer the home diversion program. Our measurable outcome during that funding period was to provide rental and utility assistance for 12 households. And Homeward Bound was able to provide rental and utility assistance for 23 households. We did that by partnering with community agencies as well as property owners and property managers to make sure that we were getting the best bang for our buck and working with individuals through a very tough time in their lives. Staff at Homeward Bound makes every effort to ensure that appropriate administration of this program happens, from targeted program eligibility through client interviews, conducting rent reasonableness and budget assessments, working with property owners to confirm habitable living standards through property inspections and continued relationship building. Homeward Bound staff also conducts follow-up with individuals that are assisted at 3 and 6 months to ensure positive transitions to community living and to make sure that they have all of the resources that they need to continue to live stably. For this current funding cycle, Homeward Bound is seeking $30,000 in home diversion funds to continue to serve community members who find themselves in vulnerable circumstances related to housing stability. The increase in this requested amount from the $20,000 we were previously awarded is prompted by current data and reports that show increases in rental pricing in the Asheville, Buncombe County area. We expect to be assisting with increased costs associated with rentals, and we would very much like the continued support from Asheville, Buncombe County to continue to offer rental assistance for individuals who are struggling in an increasingly competitive rental market. Thank you guys for your time and hope to hear from you soon.
Thank you, Marcus. We appreciate you being here today. That moves us to presentation number 7 from LDG from Mirabelle. Who's with us from Mirabelle? Did they not make it today? There's too many boxes and unknown names for me to know, but if you're here from LDG, wishing to speak about Mirabelle, please show up on camera, or if you're having technical difficulties, quickly email me. Okay, we're going to jump to number 8, which is mountain housing opportunities for Lakeshore Villas. Who's here from MHO?
Hey, Sage, this is Adeline from MHO.
Hi, go for it, Adeline.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, first of all, for having us. Like I said, I'm Adeline. I'm the project manager for mountain housing on Lakeshore Villas, this particular project. And I'll just start out with kind of an overview of the project. Lakeshore Villas is a 4% LIHTC project. It's 120 fully affordable units of new construction located in Arden, North Carolina, directly south of Lake Julian, kind of right off of Hendersonville Road. We utilized the Buncombe County Community-Oriented Development Initiative for this project to get 120 units confirmed zoning on this site. One of the things that we are most excited about the site is, in fact, its location. It is right off of Hendersonville Road, located in one of the best school districts in the South Asheville. And in terms of jobs and workforce, it's located near all the retail and jobs on Hendersonville Road, and is also less than 2 miles from the airport, and offers 2 public bus stops, public transportation stops, less than a quarter of a mile from our site's interest. So we're very excited about that. In terms of our request, we are requesting a rather large sum of $1.5 million from you all as a CHODO applicant. And this request kind of reflects the nature of where we are right now with the Lakeshore Villas project. This is about as shovel ready as a project as we can offer you. We have our zoning in hand, we have a tax credit award in hand, and we have 90% construction documents that are ready to submit for permitting. This request really reflects kind of our last variable standing in the way, which is acquiring appropriate funding. I know Commonwealth hinted at this earlier in the presentation, but we're facing, very variable construction price increases as well as interest rate increases. And this request is reflecting kind of that final gap that we are facing in bringing Lakeshore Villas across that finish line to a reality. Again, we are a CHODO applicant and are ready to move forward with this development depending on how funding transpires within the next couple of months. So thank you guys very much again, and look forward to continuing the conversation later.
Thank you, Adeline. We appreciate you being here today. Number 9 is National Church Residences for Vanderbilt Apartments. Who is here on their behalf?
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yes, Evan, hi, go ahead.
Yes. Hi, my name is Evan Scott, and I'm here on behalf of National Church Residences in our upcoming senior affordable housing renovation at Vanderbilt Apartments in Asheville. So this will be a 4% tax credit deal, and we have applied for $700 in gap funding from you all. So just a little bit about National Church Residences. So we are actually headquartered in Columbus, Ohio. We are the nation's largest not-for-profit provider of affordable senior housing. And North Carolina is definitely a state of focus for our team. We have 7 properties and more than 500 units in the state. And since 2020, we've worked to fund the substantial rehabilitation for the 2 properties that we own and manage in Asheville, one of which is the subject at hand, Vanderbilt Apartments, The other one is Battery Park Apartments, which sits actually just across the street. And we are very excited to share that we're set to close on financing next week on that property. That is also a 4% LIHTC project, but benefits from historic tax credits, whereas Vanderbilt does not. So Vanderbilt is an existing senior development. Some of you might be familiar with it. It's in an incredible location on Haywood Street, right next to Harrah's Cherokee Center. It provides 123 efficiency and one-bedroom units. You know, this property and Battery Park are both consistently full with wait lists. Half of the units at Vanderbilt are reserved for households earning at or below 50% of area median income. The other half allow for up to 60% AMI, but all units are affordable. All units are also restricted to residents 62 and older or those with disabilities. That is the bread and butter of what we do at National Church Residences is senior housing. And all of these restrictions are going to stay in place following the renovation. So this property is really interesting. It's an old building. It was constructed in the early 1920s as the George Vanderbilt Hotel. Along the way, it was converted into housing for the elderly and disabled. And then we purchased it in 2006 and substantially rehabilitated it using tax credits at that time. And while it really has been well maintained, no real substantial renovation has taken place in those 17 years. And, you know, given that it is an old building, a lot of building systems and finishes are just beyond their useful lives at this point. Accessibility upgrades here are becoming extremely critical. We submitted our application for 4% low-income housing tax credits and bond volume to NCHFA in January. We have walked the site with NCHFA, and they expanded our scope quite a bit from what we were anticipating. We've got both our architect and GC on board. We're working through a short list for our investor and lender, and we plan to go in for permitting next month. And we are slated to close and start work in September of this year. So just to give a quick overview of what our large scope looks like, we will be doing a lot of exterior upgrades, including the parking area. We need a new roof at this point. We need to replace half of the windows that have not been recently replaced. On the interior, everything's going to be refreshed, you know, new flooring throughout, full upgrades to all the common areas in the units, you know, new kitchens, new bathrooms, everything. But some of the more costly upgrades are going to actually require some restructuring. So I mentioned accessibility updates to make the building more livable for those with disabilities, which is a lot of our population to some extent. That will involve configuring everything from trash rooms to provide appropriate turning radius, all the way to moving walls in our ADA units. So we're also planning on adding a fitness space and a multimedia room where the space is just currently underutilized and underprogrammed. We have an on-site service coordinator at this site, and they will really be excited to leverage these areas and provide some activities that really support our residents' physical and mental and emotional wellness with social activities and nursing visits, things like that. There's also some expensive behind the walls needs here. We need to replace cast iron piping with PVC. We need to replace hot water heaters, storage tanks, boilers, PTAC units, build a heat pump. We have some structural repairs and reinforcements that are needed, and we need to safely remediate for some asbestos and lead-based paint that are present in the building. They are currently encapsulated, but we plan to remove those in this renovation. So all of this work is really essential in order to, you know, just ensure a safe and healthy and dignified home for our residents for many years to come. And with the age and the size of this property and today's construction environment, which several other applicants have noted, our construction contract is, you know, over 10 million. Our total development cost is over 32 million. We're already providing other financing, leveraging permanent debt, deferring a really substantial portion of our developer fee, and we're still facing, you know, a pretty significant gap. So if the gap remains, we will be forced to kind of reduce some of the scope. So we very much appreciate your consideration for funding.
Thank you, Evan. We appreciate your time and all that information. And that leaves us with two left, both by the same organization, WVDT Development, with the villas at Haywood first. Who's here from WDT?
Hi, I'm here, Tracy Dusenberry Tate.
There we go. Hi, Tracy. Go ahead.
Hi. So I am Tracy Dusenberry Tate. I'm here on behalf of WVDT Development and on behalf of our development team. Our team has developed many properties in North Carolina. Altogether, we have over 1,000 units in North Carolina, and WDT also has 189 market rate units. One of our partners, fortunately, lives out in Western North Carolina. I'm Stephen Drake with Broadcraft Construction. He's also our builder. He lives out in Mills River, so he will be right there and be able to manage the developments. The Villas at Haywood is a proposed 52-unit senior community in Buncombe County. The rents will be between 30 and 80% is what we're proposing. We are hoping to maybe do a little bit of deeper targeting. Right now, we just received our market studies, and we hope to be able to make that change. Having your funds will definitely help us to do deeper targeting. We also have 10% special needs units, and we always provide service linkages for our residents. That's something that's very important to us. So we like to work closely with local human service agencies, and our management company is very skilled with that, Excel Property Management. They're very experienced. These funds, we're asking for $834,178, and our total budget is $12,703,348. These funds are really critical right now, just like everyone else, mentioned, with construction costs skyrocketing and interest rates being so high on the loans. We really need these funds. The market study came back and said that there was a demand for 509 units in this area. So there's definitely, a need for these affordable units. WDT has recently received funding from the consortium for our development in Swannanoa called the Villas at Swannanoa, and that one is underway. That is 60 units for seniors. So we realized the demand and decided we needed to look for another potential development in Buncombe County. So we are just looking. We submitted our initial application in January, and we're hoping to get a commitment from the consortium so that it will help our application in May. It is very competitive, as you know now. So these funds are really critical to these tax credit developments. We're hoping, we could set aside up to 11 home units. So if you have any questions at all, just let me know, and I can move into the other one if you want me to do that. Okay. The other development we have is White Pine Villas, and that one may sound familiar to you who have been on the board for a while, because this is, I think, our third time applying for funds. You have funded us in the past. I thank you for that, but unfortunately, we were not able to receive the tax credits. As I mentioned, it is highly competitive right now, and NCHFA just keeps throwing different things in the mix. Like last year, they had the walk score as a scoring criteria, which made it very difficult for everyone, even though White Pine Villas actually has a bus stop located there. So that's one great thing about that. We did reduce our units. Originally, we were looking at doing 78 units, but because of costs being so high, we did reduce them down to 60 units because NCHFA does have a cap on the amount of credits you can get. So we reduced our units to try to make the project feasible and more competitive. We have a feeling, this may be our last chance, since we have to keep talking the seller into extending the option to purchase. So these funds are definitely critical. We are asking for $898,414, and our total development budget on this one is $14,408,000. And I know that the consortium has only done the one project, I believe, with WDT, which is the Villas at Swannanoa. So we don't have a huge track record yet since that one's underway. But we have done worked with a lot of other local governments that have home funds. So we're very familiar with the process. and we know how to, meet all of the regulations. One of the places we worked in a lot was Gastonia. We've done, I think, 3 developments there, and they funded all of them because they were very pleased with what we did. So we feel that you will be the same once we get these built. And in our market study for this one, it actually came back that there was a 1,202 unit net demand. So there's a very huge demand in Hendersonville. So there's a need, and we hope that third time will be the charm. If you have any questions, just let us know.
Thank you, Tracy. We appreciate your time and being here today. And our applicant that number 8 earlier, I'm sorry, I'm not sure which number, LDG from Mirabelle, it was able to make it. So we're going to go ahead and have them present. Who's with us from LDG? Well, I heard they were on.
Landon,
trying to talk. But...
Yeah, I see Landon Cox is here from Mirabelle, but we cannot hear you.
I can't even see them yet.
He's saying 1 second. I think he's just configuring his mic.
Okay. How's that?
Great. We can hear you now.
There we go. Okay, great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. I'm so sorry. I owe you all a lot of apologies, but thank you for being willing to come back and circle back to me. Sorry for missing. So LDG has requested $500,000 in home funds for development of Mirabelle, which would be a 156 unit, 4% bond deal in Weaverville. I've heard, I've been on, folks have talked about gaps. Our project is no different than I think probably everyone else on the call. At the beginning of January last year, which is when the project first went under contract, we had a very small gap, less than $1 million. With the rise in cost of construction, labor, and also the interest rates, the gap has grown to just under $10 million. So we've asked for $500,000 from you all, and the balance from the county. It would go toward creating a community that has 36, units at 30%, 60%, and 80% AMI. The 30% units would be covered by 58 project-based vouchers that were awarded through the Asheville Housing Authority last year. And we think that the project is fantastic for affordable housing for a couple of reasons. One is its proximity to the amenities. It scores perfectly on the NHFA location criteria. But most importantly, there's a huge demand for housing in this area. A market study that LDG had commissioned at the end of last year indicated there are about 1,500 households in the area that will qualify to live at the community, and not a single comparable unit in the area. So big demand there for housing. We think the community, we hope that the committee believes this would be a good use of the money, and appreciate your all's consideration of our request.
Thank you, Landon, and thank you to everyone who was able to be here and present today. It's painful to hear all the rising construction costs and interest rates and so on. But I believe that concludes our list. Get back to that is it. And again, we are meeting next week, March 22nd at 10 a.m. for funding recommendations and allocations. We'll have those documents up about 3 days before the meeting. So I guess that would be, Sunday, Friday. I'm not really sure how that works when it's on a Wednesday, but we'll have them up as soon as they're ready. And I appreciate everyone's time today. Kate, go ahead.
I just wanted to double check if we do have questions about any of the applications, should we funnel those through staff? Will we have a chance to ask any of those before we start making recommendations?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think maybe sending them, Nikki, what do you think, to myself and you so we can kind of get them on one place? And
Yes, I think if you'll just send them to me and to our staff, we'll see if we can move forward on that. We are, yeah, I'm looking at my comments. Yes, Christina, if you can send those to staff, we'll share those with the applicants.
okay, great. Anything else we need to cover today or any other questions from folks? Okay, well, I'm happy to see that we had such great turnout and everybody was able to be here for the presentations, or almost everybody. So thank you. And if we get your questions quickly, we'll get them to the groups quickly and we'll get them back to you quickly. So time is of the essence. I hope the rest of you, I hope you have a great rest of your day. It's Friday. Finally time.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.